Today we're talking about relationships, and I am with Jay. Jay, thanks for joining me here today because I really appreciate your feedback on what we're going to be talking about.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we're going to start. I'm going to be rough with you a little because I'm going to ask you your feelings, and I know most men aren't into their feelings, but you gotta reveal some. We're going to talk about your latest relationship. We're not going to name anyone. We're going to be private. Can you tell me how do you cope with being with someone that you love so much and then having to deal with now the aftermath?
Oh, great.
I know
That's a
that's a
great
heavy
question.
question.
I'm not sure I have a spectacular answer for that. Part of the way I've been coping with it is trying to look back and see what happened throughout the relationship that, how I contributed to certain things and how I was not really paying attention to some pretty major red flags.
Hmm.
And I have to kind of look at myself on that. What was I missing at the very beginning, and why was I looking the other way? And part of this, I just think that, having been a cop for almost 30 years and kind of always being the protector in my family long before I became a police officer, sort of always that giver, problem
Hmm.
solver, giver. I think this person has some issues, but all she needs is an example and a steady, strong person to be there, and those things will fix themselves.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So you're looking for the best in people is pretty
Trying
much
to,
overright. You're
correct.
trying to until they prove you otherwise.
Well, and there was a lot of proof happening that I was probably not paying attention to.
What do you think on your personal side is why you avoided the red flags at the beginning? Because you didn't understand them, or you wanted to make sure you're correct in what you were thinking?
Yeah, I had, as an officer or sergeant, I had spent a number of years being single. I was just married, sort of married to the career, and working a lot of overtime and doing special ops and detective stuff. And so it took a lot of time out of my life. It was still one of those careers that a lot of women maybe shy away from wanting to be with a police officer because of the dangers and what have you. Certainly growing up in the Bay Area and working in the Bay Area, there's a lot of tech people with a lot of money, so maybe that was part of the issue. Um, there was a lot of opportunity for women in the Bay Area, but I think I retired, and I think I had decided I wanted to devote my energy and my passion and all that to finding a life partner and enjoying retirement with someone else.
Hmm.
And so I think the desire to be in a relationship maybe blinded me slightly to
Oh, I see.
some of the red flags that were kind of screaming at me.
Was there a particular woman that you had in mind? And I don't mean so much looks, but a type that you wanted to retire with once you've finished your career, you want to live life and live it up. What kind of
No,
woman were you looking for?
no. Again, I'm not. I'm an equal opportunity employer.
That's
I
funny.
didn't have a specific type. Certainly not physically. I'm a fit guy. Generally, I've generally been you know into sports and doing activities outdoors, and I've always been a snow skier and a water skier and golfer, and so I wanted someone who enjoyed all those things also.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the chemistry was kind of more important to me than than the
Oh, true.
looks. You know what I mean?
That's
The
true.
chemistry of our life, like what did, what can you add to me that maybe I'm missing, and what can I add to you that maybe you are missing, and that we can grow together.
Hmm.
Was the hope, the desire?
Because you have to match. And like you said, chemistry is number one. You could have the best looking person in the world. If there's no chemistry, there's no relationship.
Right. And I think a lot of people confuse chemistry for like sexual, physical attraction. And that's not what I think chemistry is. Certainly I
Hmm.
want that in a relationship, right? I think everybody wants that, attraction. But I think
Hmm.
chemistry is a lot more than just physical attraction.
And an understanding it. Haven't you? I'm not sure about this last relationship, but have you been with someone before that you didn't even have to say anything and they understood you? Have it?
It's been many years ago, but
Hmm.
yes,
That's a great feeling. I feel like that's part of chemistry.
100%.
Because you could just not say a word and understand each other. And I feel like that's just such a great part that some people overlook. It's
I
not
think
always
that's,
words.
yeah, sorry for interrupting. Yeah, that's very, I think it's hard to find. I think that's what most of us are looking for, but it's very
Hmm.
difficult to find.
What would you say on your you could have done better. I'm not going to say you're an angel or a devil. So, looking at yourself, what would you say you would change or have done differently?
Um, well, I think I offered up. I'm a very open person. I tend to, wear my heart on my sleeve. People, they know how I'm feeling. There's never much question. I've been accused of maybe being a little too direct sometimes.
Oh,
Uh, but I offered. I do have a little bit of a trigger, anger trigger that I put out there, like on the very first date. That, hey, listen, I've got this thing, and it's from being a cop for almost 30 years and being lied to every day, all day,
hmm
by the best of the best and the worst of the worst. I can't handle my partner today lying to me. And
Oh, that's a
if you lie to
no-go.
me, if
hmm
you lie to me, I'm going to lose my mind. Like literally, and I've said 1,000 times, you can tell me any truth. I mean, you can tell
hmm
me you were, with somebody last night and you guys, went off to some hotel and whatever. I'm like, I will not get mad about that. We may not date after that, but I won't get mad. Right?
Right.
You can tell me any truth and I will never get mad. But I have this, we call it a PTSD thing. I don't know what it really is, but I will get angry when I get lied to my face. It's insulting, one, but two, it's just, obviously it betrays trust. I think trust is the foundation of any relationship.
Right. And
And
disrespectful, if you ask me.
I think that with the right person, I think that's an appropriate thing to do. And I think with the right person, they then want to protect that and they'll
hmm
go bend over backwards where they might want to tell a white lie or they might want to, not be completely honest about something or forthcoming with something. I think having known that, I would hope that the right person would, protect me in
hmm
telling me the truth anyway and saying, hey, and maybe admitting, hey, listen, I really didn't want to admit it, but after what you told me, I don't want to, have that. You
I can
said you don't want to
respect
see that
that.
part of yourself. You said,
hmm
I don't want to see that part of you. So I was trying to prevent that by being, very transparent. The wrong person, which is who I ended up with, was someone who then used that as a button and a way to make me the bad guy.
What do you
When,
mean? Explain.
when if they were caught in a lie or caught doing something they shouldn't be doing or being, or having an issue because of mental health problems, instead of taking responsibility and ownership of that particular problem, they would purposely lie to get me to get upset.
Oh
And then they would
no.
point at me being upset. See, you're the problem. Your anger is the problem. Yeah.
And did
So,
that make you feel bad about yourself as if maybe you were, I don't
oh,
know, self-conscious
100%.
about it?
There's no part of me that said that part of me. I said at the very beginning when I was talking to my now ex, when I told her on date one this whole story, I said it's a part of me I don't like. I don't like being angry. You know what I mean?
hmm Right.
I was a cop for almost 30 years. I'm a little bit of a control freak. I mean, I certainly don't want to be the guy who's losing control of himself in any fashion.
Right.
And it's not a part of me that I like, and it's certainly not a part of me I want you to ever see. So please don't ever do this. And like I said, in the right scenario, I would hope that that would be a positive thing. It turned out it was used against me as a way to push a button so I would get upset, and then so she could flip that back on me. And,
And
instead of
that's just
ignore
so
me.
disrespectful. And I'm sorry that you had to live through that because as a cop and like you said, as being lied to, what's that famous saying? I'd rather hear it from you than someone else.
Yeah,
And so that's what the line comes around. You don't want someone to come up and say, "Oh, by the way, fill in the blank,"
right,
and find out by some stranger or someone you don't know and not your spouse.
correct. Or photos on social
Oh,
media or
that's just as
whatever.
bad. That's just as bad. And so I was just talking to Aaron, my co-host, which we did episode number one. We were talking about mental illness and how I was on the side of you need to be honest. I don't care how bad it is. I'd rather you be honest with me.
Yeah.
He was on the side of, well, someone might be a little embarrassed, so they may not tell you. And I said, well, that's technically lying. What's your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to fall on the side of what you said, because I think that's technically lying.
hmm
I certainly think when you start dating someone, there's that beginning phase where you're not going to just dump everything out on the counter, right? You're going to get to know the person and see, how serious is the relationship going to be, and once the relationship starts getting to the point where you're going to be, you're having the conversation about we're going to be
Exclusive?
exclusive, thank you. At that point, I think it's very important to have those conversations.
Mhm.
And, from my own experience, that was one of the problems, is that I wasn't told, and we were already exclusive. And I
Oh,
didn't
that's
find out
big.
until I found medication on my bathroom counter. And I looked at the medication. Of course, I know right away what the medication is for. I had to confront her about it. She never told me about it up front, but it explained a couple of instances that had happened. It explained some of those instances, because now that I know she was on these meds, there was a couple of times where she had been drinking a little bit and she started acting a little different. And I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. Red flag.
Mhm.
And then now I figured it out. Well, if you're on psych meds, you really should not be drinking while you're on those meds, because they do have really bad interactions. And those
And they're
interactions
told
can be really
that. They
negative.
they would know that, right? Of course.
Correct. Yeah.
See, to me, that's dishonest. And again, going back to you saying, just be honest with me. So, Aaron, I hope you're listening to this. Do you have to be honest with the person, or it's what is that? The fruits of the poisonous tree?
Right.
Starting from the beginning,
Right.
everything's going to be poisoned.
If the foundation's cracked, you're already starting off wrong. You're going to have a bad relationship, bad building if the foundation is cracked.
What was her attitude once you confronted her? Because I guess at that point it would be a little embarrassing because she tried to hide it, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think she had that kind of uh-oh moment where she absolutely felt like she was caught at something. And then she kind of initially downplayed it about why she was on the meds, how that all went down. Allegedly, it goes back to 20 plus years ago when she was, in her 20s. And oddly enough, she had a depressive episode, I guess you would say. And a friend's mother worked for a doctor's office. So her friend's mother took her into the doctor's office and they prescribed her pretty heavy antidepressants. And she just took them. Never went to therapy, never really got a true diagnosis, was just prescribed these meds. And doctors throughout the years have just continued to prescribe the meds and she takes them, which is,
That
obviously disturbing from the medical standpoint. But it's also,
absolutely.
and maybe that was part of my reason of trying to like stick it out with her and look the other way on some of the red flags, is I felt like she was having family. I grew up in a medical family, hospital administrator. My father's a hospital administrator. My mother was a nurse. Felt like, man, she really like the short end of the stick from the medical field. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
had someone just actually sat her down and talked to her, and they might have discovered some things as to why she was having the depressive episode. Maybe that would have led to some therapy for those traumatic things that had happened earlier in her life. She would mentally be in a much better place today, I would certainly think and hope, than just never going to therapy and just taking meds for 20 plus years.
They could have given her the wrong dosage. They could have given her
100%.
the wrong
But she
type of
was
pill.
she was on the max dosage, so I would suggest they gave her the wrong dosage right off the bat if they're giving her the max amount, because she said
That's
that.
inappropriate.
And that's, I'm going off of what she told me.
Well,
Now,
I know medically or psychologically, it should be coupled, medication is coupled with therapy because you're trying to figure out the basic of what's going on. I
right,
mean, yes, it's physical, psychological. However, you still need to work on it.
exactly. And I
And that's
come. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I just said it's a terrible thing to just give someone medication and not help them. You're technically
Exactly.
not helping.
Right. And I've, and again, looking, we were talking, referencing back to the looking the other way from the red flags. This poor person really did not get the best medical assistance when she actually needed it.
Hmm.
She didn't get the best advice and I'm someone who's been in therapy throughout his life for different things. I had an older brother pass away when he was 13, I was 11. And of course, my
Mm.
parents threw both of the brothers into therapy. And so I got an exposure to it at a very young age. I didn't stay in it very long, but we had that exposure. And as a police officer, I've been involved in numerous events where we were at therapy sessions afterwards to help us, process what had happened and get back to work the right way. So I had exposure, and I've had people who are therapists, who are friends, good friends of mine still today. So I know the positivity of therapy, and I know there's, especially with guys, there's a really cloud over what
Stigma.
that stigma thing that they view that as. But having some experience with it with friends and family and my own personal experiences, I was trying my best to push her into doing that. At least now at this age, I mean, she's 50 years old now, so it's She's long past when she should be doing it.
I don't give up hope. I'm like someone could still look and go, I need to get help, but I see what you're saying because once you're on medication, you feel like that's the answer. Oh, I just have to take my meds. And
Yeah,
that is not the answer. And I want anyone listening, I'm not against it. That's actually my passion is psychology. And I feel that people are just lost sometimes and without the right therapy or medication, it could be bad for you and your partner. And
right.
it seems like you lived through that. How difficult is it when you love someone and you care about them and you have to deal with this? This seems like two different things that you're like one party loves that person because whatever reason, and then the other part is dislikes the negative part of it.
Right. I mean, there's, I've talked to some of my good friends over the past handful of months after breaking up with my ex, and they're all, man, you need to get rid of her a long time ago. I'm like, well, they're like, Jay, you don't love her. You love the idea of her, and that might be true.
Oh, interesting.
That might be true because I did have an idea of her. I thought, I always thought that there was this person inside, and the way she was exhibiting herself to others and exhibiting herself sometimes partly was the med's fault.
Hmm.
I tried to get her to wean down to see, or change meds, wean down to see if some things would work, and unfortunately that didn't happen while we were really together. She tried a couple times when we were apart, and it didn't work out. But I think that was because she didn't have any support. I think if she had support, a change in meds or a lowering of the meds probably long term would have worked out for her. But who knows? That might not be true.
Well, my question to you is, like your friend said, you love the idea of her. Is it you had invested so much time? Is that one of the reasons? You know how someone could be with someone long enough and go, well, it's better to work out what I already have than to try to go
Right.
blind.
Exactly. It was, it's partly, I guess, part of my current life situation. I don't have a lot of networking. I'm not working anymore right now. I'm tired doing some things, for fun. I'm a golfer and I've traveled a little bit. Last handful of years, I've dealt with some family health issues and some deaths in the family. So I've been busy doing those things, but
Hmm.
not really, I'm not working. I'm not in a scenario where I have a really good network. Certainly going to a bar and, with a couple friends and hanging out at the bar isn't exactly what I call networking.
That's called
Yeah,
drunk.
it's not exactly where you're gonna, I'm probably gonna meet the woman of my life. But so I lack some of that networking abilities, opportunities to meet people. So maybe that played into my mentality of trying to make something
Oh.
work a little harder than maybe I should have.
Hmm.
But I definitely believe it was. I truly believed at one point we had this kind of connection, this chemistry, not just physical, deeper than that. I had put a lot of energy and time into trying to help her with her mental health and with everything. And she was on her job, she could telecommute a lot with her job. So when I
Hmm.
was traveling for family stuff or would have fun stuff, she was traveling with me a lot. So
Hmm.
we spent a lot of time together traveling and doing all sorts of those things. So it did feel like a lot of investment, even though it was only a couple of years, but it seemed like a large
Couple of
investment.
years is a long time,
Yeah.
especially sharing yourself and mentally, everything physically. And now that it's over, I know you're still dealing with that. What lessons would you tell me that you learned from that relationship? Or what would you look for now or be wary of?
Yeah.
I know
Well,
that's
like
a
I
loaded
said,
question.
it is, it goes back a little bit to a little bit of what we already talked about, which was pay more attention to red flags and be
Hmm.
a little more, maybe not standoffish, but not let the relationship develop as quickly as it did
Oh,
because of those
okay.
red flags.
Hmm.
And in certain things that occurred should have been King's X. If you're going to lie to me, that's all I need to know. This isn't going to work. And that's probably the biggest thing is I probably should have at the point where I knew it was a proven, it wasn't something I was suspicious of. It was a proven fact that she had lied about a couple of significant things. And I should have probably just cut ties at that point rather
Bowed out gracefully and said,
than,
have a nice life. It sounds easier said than done, but
it
I
does.
have to agree with you because I really believe maybe I'm older and boring now, but I feel like if it doesn't naturally happen and it's not easy, you're saying the chemistry, two people, I'm not saying everything's perfect, but it shouldn't be work. It shouldn't be this
Right.
of, hey, we're together and we've got to just try to make this work. It should be just naturally flow. What do you think?
Correct. Yeah. And I have a friend of mine locally here. She would see what was going on between us, and she actually said that very thing. She says, Jay, it shouldn't be that much work. See how her friend, her guy friend, and her were, and they did. They got along very well, but they both had that honesty thing with each other.
Hmm.
Uh, they both had their own issues and their own life,
Everyone does.
problems, but they were very upfront with each other, and so they got along really well. And their relationship eventually ended also, but it didn't end really badly. It ended kind of amicably because they were being honest. They were honest with each other.
Hmm.
They're honest to themselves, and I think that's how relationships are supposed to go. Like, you're supposed to learn and get to know people, and it should be a lot easier. And
Hmm.
honesty will help you either move forward successfully or at least move apart respectfully.
And I don't want to be rude, but I feel like people don't waste people's time
Right.
because the more you lie and the more you hide, there's another person I interviewed. He got married faster than he should have, and he found out later she was in dire debt, major debt.
Wow.
She never said anything to him, but they were married by the time he found out. And so again, I feel like starting on a negative and being dishonest can only lead to a disaster. What do you think?
Correct. Yeah. 100%.
And so, well, wrapping it up, tell the listeners how to get over, and again, you don't get over things like this, what you did to get over the initial shock of it and or the initial time you realized this is over. It had to
Well,
have a support system. What did you do to
I think
take care of
I think
yourself?
you just nailed it right on the head. Yeah, a support system I think is certainly the key. I mean, having friends and family both to spend time with, get your mind off things, and to bounce information off of, and have them share with you and do things with you and support you both
Hmm.
mentally and just socially, getting you out, having dinner, whatever it might be.
Hmm.
Get on the golf course for me with friends, and obviously was important thing for me. But the support system, I think, hands down, is the number one key to kind of surviving those situations.
I love that. And don't shy away from therapy. Maybe you need a few sessions just to get the initial negativity away or the understanding that it's not your fault
one Hundred
if it's
percent.
not. So until next time, thank you, Jay, for joining me, and I look
Thanks for
forward to
having me.
another conversation.
Look forward to it.